Is Amanda here? Yes. Sorry I couldn't give you more time. We've got 85 people to hear over 2 days, so we've got to keep pretty tight for time. Welcome, Amanda. You've got 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. I'm here today primarily to talk about the proposed speed change on Southampton Street in Beckenham, Sydenham, but I also will touch a little bit on some of the other proposed changes in the wider Beckenham area. I've lived on Southampton Street for 20 years, and my family bikes, walks, scooters and drives in the area every single day. It's our community, we know it really well. 20 years ago, Southampton Street did have a speed issue. It was a bit of a boy racer magnet. And 20 years ago, I would have welcomed something being done to reduce the speed that people drove down our street. Now, I genuinely feel that speed is not an issue on the street. People drive at a much slower speed all the time, pretty much. There's obviously always the odd rule breaker. But in general, I don't think speed on our street is a problem. My children go to school in Beckenham and Cashmere. They bike and scooter to school, and they have done on their own since a reasonably young age. They never feel concerned for their safety, and I never feel concerned sending them off to school on their own. Southampton Street's a very wide street, so that means that even with cars parked on either side of it, there's still plenty of room for cyclists and cars to go down the street. The footpaths are also very wide, so there's plenty of room for pedestrians. And in addition, it's a reasonably straight street, apart from a couple of bends at the beginning and the end. And so when you're crossing the street, you've got really clear, easy vision both ways. I certainly agree that it's sensible to reduce some of the speed limit on some of the streets in the area. Sandwich Road, for example, makes sense, and Fisher Ave. Both streets are pretty narrow and very, very busy during school pick-up and drop-off time. And there's lots of kids making their way to school, of course, as well as parents dropping them off. But that's in stark contrast to Southampton Street, which, as I said, is very wide. And from my observations, it has a reasonably light flow of traffic, both on the footpaths and cyclists and cars at any time of the day, on any day of the week. Just touching again on what's been proposed in the wider area, I think it's really important to consider that while we absolutely want to keep our kids safe, taking into account holidays and weekends, kids are actually only travelling to school and home from school on about 50% of the days of the year. And even then, that's only a small part of each of those days. So it feels like what's been done in the area already in terms of speed reduction is working. And I think that potentially having a variable limit that's enforced at certain times of certain weekdays is a more practical approach to what's been proposed, which looks to me like pretty much a blanket 30 kilometres an hour throughout the entire area. 30 kilometres an hour is an extraordinarily conservative speed, especially on a street such as Southampton Street, but that counts for some of the other streets in the area as well. I had some correspondence with council staff when I was trying to prepare my submission, and I asked for details of research that had been done to determine the new speed limits in the area. I was interested in learning some of the statistics, perhaps around injuries and deaths in the area, which had led to determining why it needed to be 30 kilometres an hour. I was told in what I felt was a rather patronising reply, to be honest, that it was part of Waka Kotahi's Road to Zero strategy and that you weren't going to wait for deaths to happen before you decided to make the streets safer, which I didn't really think that was particularly helpful. But what that does lead me to question is that if you've got no statistics on deaths or injuries caused by Southampton Street being 50 kilometres an hour, does that not mean we're already at zero? So by reducing it to 30 kilometres an hour, are you not solving a non-existent problem? So Southampton Street does have an issue, but it's not speed, it's the quality of the road surface. It frequently has potholes that need patching, and I hate to think how much has been spent over the years on patching those potholes. I think if you're going to be spending money on my street, I know what I would prefer it to be spent on. Now, I don't necessarily think for 1 minute that me coming here today is going to change anyone's mind about what's going to happen in the area, and I think that your staff member's response to my email kind of gives me that strong indication. But regardless, thank you for your time. I wanted to show my kids that when you believe in something, you need to stand behind it and come and speak at a public meeting, even though that's a bit scary. So thank you.
So that's perfectly timed for your time, and you're quite right. You do have to make a stand on things you believe in. So thank you very much for coming to speak to us.
Thank you.
Valuable. All right. So who do we have next?